When you search around YouTube and look for home theater audio setups and demo-worthy content, you're primarily going to find Dolby Atmos setups. That's kind of the hot topic. That's kind of the mainstay that everyone's trying to achieve nowadays in their home theater. And there's nothing wrong with that. But here in my home theater, I run just a standard 5.1 setup. Technically it's 5.4, and I'll get to that here in a few minutes, but it's a 5.1 setup. And I think there's still some quality content that you can view on home media that can give you a really good audio experience that's still just a standard 5.1 audio mix. And so with that in mind, here in this video today, I'm going to talk about 5.1 audio mixes that can still give you some really good audio quality here in your home theater. So stay tuned to see what I have on my list. Now, before we get into my list of content that I'm going to talk about, I want to do a small preamble kind of thing here at the beginning of the video. And that's to talk about my home theater setup. Now, if you want to see more detail about my home theater setup and my speaker arrangement and my trials and stuff over the years, you can check the video that I'll have linked up here in the corner. I will warn you, it is a little rough around the edges because it is one of my earlier videos I posted here on the channel. But if you're interested in that, definitely click the video up here. But to just briefly talk about that, I want to mention why I have a 5.1 setup here in my home theater. I originally had a 7.4.4 system here in my home theater for several years. And if you're not familiar with what that kind of lingo means, I'll kind of explain it really quickly here. 7 is 7 base layer speakers. So that'd be my left channel, my center channel, my right channel, a left and right side surround, and then a left and right rear surround. The .4 would be for 4 subwoofers, which I still have today. They may not be the greatest subwoofers. They're just Polk PSW 10s. They're not the greatest, but I still have all 4 of those. And then the .4 at the end would have been my Atmos speakers. So I had 4 of those. I had 2 in the front of the home theater and then 2 towards the rear of the home theater. And that is kind of what I shoehorned in here for several years when I first started building out my home theater, because I had it in my head that that's really what I wanted, and that was the standard that you had to achieve. And so once I decided to go with just a standard 5.1 and kind of downgrade and remove speakers, I got rid of my Atmos speakers, and then I got rid of my side surround speakers. And to be completely honest, I could probably float having one set of Atmos speakers here in my home theater as it sits in its current setup. Probably one set right over the middle of the room, of the space, would probably work fine. But I don't know if 2 sets would really be beneficial here. I really got rid of my side surrounds because the way my room is set up, I have a notch cut out on the right side of the room when you're facing the projector screen that's behind me. And so with that kind of setup here, when I had side surrounds, you would have the side surround to your left kind of like 5 feet from your listening position, and then the side surround on the right would be like 13, 14, 15 feet from your listening position. And even with trying to match levels and trims and everything, it always still felt like you were a little bit delayed and missing out kind of on that audio on the right hand side, and the left hand side just seemed way closer. And so that's why I ultimately decided on a 5.1 and kind of shrink it down and keep it kind of encapsulated in just a rectangular section of my space down here. And so that leads me to the video here today. Everyone always pushes Dolby Atmos mixes for the most part. You might get a 7.1 or something thrown in there every so often, but like over 90%, 95% of what you're going to see here on YouTube is really talking about Dolby Atmos. And honestly, there's nothing wrong with that. I don't have any problems with Dolby Atmos. And even here in my setup, Dolby Atmos tracks that are kind of downscale to 5.1 still sound really good. But there's nothing wrong with that if that's what you want to do. But here I want to talk about 5 physical media releases I have in my collection that you can find online, either new or used at good prices, that still give you a dedicated 5.1 audio mix. And that audio mix is still extremely dynamic and extremely engaging and a pretty good listen, in your home theater. One other thing I do want to say before I get into the list, I guess I wasn't done with the preamble, is that I'm going to try and throw in some B-roll footage of the films I talk about here. If you see that, that means they cleared copyright. If you don't see any of those, that means they didn't clear copyright, and I don't want to have an issue with copyright problems. So just a little heads up, if you don't see any footage of the films and it's just me talking, it's because it didn't clear copyright. But anyways, let's move on to the list. Starting off my list at number 5 is a physical media release that I've talked about previously on my channel in my Why I Own It series of videos. I'll have that linked up here in the corner as well if you want to look at that video. But that is going to be the Apollo 13 15th Anniversary Edition DVD. And the version I'm talking about on here isn't the standard version of this film. I'm talking about the special IMAX presentation that's on the second disc of this 15th Anniversary DVD Special Edition. Now, this version of the film is only available, to my knowledge, on this 15th Anniversary Special Edition DVD set. It's on the second disc on this 2-disc set. And not only does it come in a special IMAX visual presentation with some alterations to the aspect ratio and just the runtime, and some things are edited on there, but it also comes with its own IMAX version of the audio that was specially made for IMAX theaters when it was released in IMAX. And so it has its own dedicated IMAX 5.1 audio mix. So not only does this mix have a lot of dynamic, action-oriented pieces to it, like when the shuttle takes off the launch pad, when they stir the tanks and they have the mishap on the shuttle, when you see them do their fuel burst to try and get back in line to come back to Earth. You get a lot of that real big action kind of stuff. You also get a lot of the score that plays in through the audio, which is really nice. But then you also have more mellow moments with some of the actual more dramatic scenes, between the astronauts or between the family of the astronauts when they're listening on the radios. You get a lot of good dynamics there in the mix. And so because of that, this is my number 5 pick on this list, because this is mastered just in a standard 5.1 audio mix. And you can find this version, the 15th Anniversary DVD, for pretty cheap online, because it had not only a Blu-ray release and a 4K release that has come out since then on this. So this DVD release is a little bit behind the times, I think, for most people. So in terms of audio quality, I would definitely pick up this 15th Anniversary DVD just for that IMAX version of the film. And that's number 5 on my list. Number 4 on my list is something a little bit different, because I don't want to do just action and big, bombastic kind of stuff. This is a little bit different than that. Number 4 is actually going to be Michael Jackson's This Is It on Blu-ray. Now, say what you will about the actual person and different allegations and things that went on over his professional career and his life. That's a topic for a different video, a different discussion that honestly I don't get into here on my channel. But despite that, I think most people can understand that Michael Jackson was immensely influential and important to American popular music. I was, and to this day still am, a big Michael Jackson fan. He was my favorite musician growing up. I had a bunch of his CDs. I watched a bunch of his music videos, all of that good stuff. And so I went and saw This Is It in the theater when it came out back in, I believe it was like 2009. I went for a midnight showing here at our small town theater. And with that, I ended up buying this from the, I don't know if it was Family Video or the old Second Cinema that we used to have here in town. But I bought this used from one of the video rental stores. And this is a 5.1, I think it's DTS. Yeah, a 5.1 DTS mix that's on this Blu-ray here. And honestly, this is, again, something different from like an action-oriented score. This is more of like a semi-documentary, semi-concert film if you've never seen it. But regardless of that, it still sounds really good. You hear the music, you hear the ambiance of the arena kind of echoing around in the background. You know, Michael Jackson's vocals just come through really strongly. And you get a lot of special effects and like different things that they throw in there or that they were doing kind of pre-production on before the show started. And that all comes through the audio mix as well. But yeah, this is a good, solid 5.1 mix that's a little bit different than like a normal traditional movie score because it's more like a concert film and documentary kind of at heart. But again, for the music, for everything that's on here, this is a solid 5.1 audio experience. And you can find these for relatively cheap, I think for like $10 or less on most secondhand sites out there. So my number 4 pick would be Michael Jackson's This Is It. Now, my number 3 pick is going to go back to the more traditional action oriented and like big bombastic kind of sound mixes that I was talking about just a second ago. And this one is going to be the Blu-ray release of Twister. Now, I know this film recently had a 4K release, I believe last year, and there were some mixed reviews about the 4K release, both in picture and audio quality. In terms of this film, I would love to see the AC3 Laserdisc. I'm sure that has a very dynamic audio mix, probably more dynamic than what's even on here. But this one is in a Dolby True HD audio mix, so it's a slightly more uncompressed file than the standard DVD that came out of this film. And honestly, I really like this mix. The deep growling noise of all the tornadoes, all the special effects of trees and power lines being downed. When you see trucks get turned over in the Dorothy machine, you know, get spilled out on the road and different things. You get a lot of dynamics from those little kind of sound effects and then the big tornado and storm sound effects. Plus the score uses a lot of instrumentation and a lot of deep instrumentation, you know, of like bass, like cellos and things like that. And you hear a lot of that in the mix as well. So for me, another big bombastic kind of score, you know, action piece, a 90s cult classic film would be this Blu-ray version of Twister. And because the new 4K release has come out in the past year, these Blu-rays and even the DVD version that came out before this can be had for relative bargains. Again, less than like $10. Sometimes I've seen them online for less than $5. So you can definitely pick up one of these for cheap online. But so number 3 on my list is Twister. Now on to my number 2 pick. And again, I'm going in a little bit different direction than my other films. And my number 2 pick is another film I kind of talked about briefly in another video. I haven't done a full-on video on it, but I have mentioned it before. And that is Sweeney Todd and the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Now, this film is also presented in a 5.1 audio mix. And I'm picking this because not only do I enjoy the film, but I'm kind of going off of a saying that my wife has used with me in the past since I've had my home theater. And she's always said, animation always looks really good in the home theater, and musicals always sound really good. And Sweeney Todd is one of those cases. This is, like I said, a standard 5.1 mix, but not only does it have extreme kind of dynamics in terms of some special effects, you know, sounds that are in there, but also the singing and the vocals, the musical numbers are in here. But then you also get some more mellow and like haunting kind of like horror themes that play through it because of kind of like the story of this film. And so because of that, I am definitely picking this Sweeney Todd Blu-ray. And same like the other films, you can find this online, both new and used, for pretty cheap, for like less than 10 bucks, you know, here in this Blu-ray form. So it's definitely another cheap one you can find out there. So number 2 for me is a musical. It's Sweeney Todd and the Demon Barber of Fleet Street. Now, before I get to my number 1 pick, I do want to say thank you to everyone out there who's viewed my content. I really do appreciate it. And if you do like what I'm doing here on this channel, definitely consider liking and subscribing and leaving a comment down below about some 5.1 audio mixes that you guys may like to listen to. I always enjoy hearing your comments. So with that, let's get on to my number 1 pick for a 5.1 audio mix here in your home theater. Now for the number 1 pick on this list, I'm picking a film, and technically, I guess it's like 3 films in a set, and you can pick any one of the 3. I'm going with the first film in this series, but I'm picking a classic 90s action, and honestly, probably still considered an audiophile and reference quality movie to listen to in your home theater. And this is The Matrix Ultimate Collection on Blu-ray, and more specifically, the original Matrix film. Now, this set has come out in a remastered, updated version on 4K a couple of years ago, whatever, 5, 6 years ago. And I've seen mixed reviews online about that. And I think it may have the original audio mix on that 4K version, but I do think they also upscaled it into like a 7.1 or an Atmos mix. The original 5.1 audio mix is just awesome. It's like one of the peak pinnacle late 90s, early 2000s action soundtracks. And really, not only the film, but that audio defined like a whole generation of cinema here in America. Not only do you have the score with some electronic kind of notes to it and the creepy sound effects of them going in and out of the Matrix, you've also got the iconic bullet dodging sequences, and you hear those bullets just rip around you in the home theater. Not only all of that, you have great action cues. So one of the best audiophile kind of reference scenes, even for me to this day, is the shootout in the building to go save Morpheus. That whole kind of like 4 or 5 minute shootout sequence just has a ton of audio everywhere, and really gives your home theater a full on, kind of test, especially if you want to crank it up. But then you also have a few more mellow moments between like Trinity and Neo and, kind of in the Matrix when they're just talking and doing some different things when there's not action going on. And like when Morpheus is talking to everybody and kind of, talking to Neo and all that. So you get a lot of dynamics, but honestly, this set and especially that original film is really for its action. Going out there and just getting this full-on action soundtrack. And it's just mastered in a 5.1 mix, but it sounds, like I said, extremely enveloping, and you can definitely hear audio all around you at certain points in the film. And since the newer 4K versions of the Matrix films have come out over the last handful of years, you can find this specific set used online for a pretty decent price. Since it's a set with like 4 films in it, you can usually get it for under 20 bucks, which isn't a bad deal to get it for like 20 bucks, a little less than 20 bucks, because you're getting the entire set plus the animatrix plus all the bonus content. And with that, we are going to wrap up the video here today. I just want to quickly say thank you again to everyone out there who's watched my content, and I will see you the next time in the next video right here on Secondhand Home Theater.